Okay, thank you, Gerard, and it's my pleasure to be here. I would like to start with the really topical issue of that is the renewal of the EU telecommunication regulatory framework. And I definitely think that we need a mind shift. Basically, the regulatory framework was built in a time of the circuit switch telephony networks. We had early days, we had actually quite a thick green book that told our operators how to build and manage their networks. It's not really the way we should be doing it anymore. And well, I think there are a few issues there. For example, my own experience from the regulatory authority is that the government is actually pretty good in inventing new rights and new obligations, but it's actually many times hard to remove anything. I mean, say that this isn't necessary anymore. So my main message here is we need actually less, better, and more focused regulation in the telecommunications. Well, first, I think we can think about the question about the sector-specific regulation. Where do we actually need that? I mean that we have a good general regulation, for example, in the area of the consumer protection and the competition legislation. Is that enough? Or where do we actually need to have something that is specific for the telecommunication sector? And that's one of the big things we need to discuss and think in the coming review of the regulatory framework. Of course, I still believe that we need some regulations. For example, we as an authority, we want to make sure that the end users has access to the infrastructure that is secure and reliable. So we believe that some regulation is needed. But that's network level regulation, regulating the networks. When we have been seeing the introduction of the OTT services, new players in the internet, I don't think that we should try to duplicate the current regulatory framework towards those players. More likely, I think we should actually try to have a really light touch there and probably leave many of those things out of the regulation. Then, on the other hand, we need to make the playing field equal. So we really have to rethink about the current regulations we have for the service side, namely, for example, broadcasting service. Do we need to have a really complicated regulation on the television services? Maybe we want to regulate the emergency calls or something like that. But what other regulation we need for the telephony services? So my message is that we should probably try to focus on the essential features that gives you enablers for the digital economy. And then let the market decide the service and application side. Of course, some security and privacy rules are probably needed also there. In the larger scale, I think the other thing is the digital single market, what we are also waiting from the Commission. It's really important also for us, and it may change the market. Basically, we have some ideas what should be done. Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we have a healthy commercial media. And for example, in Finland, the commercial media is not faring that well due to the internet and Google and all the competition. So we really need to think that how much regulation we need for the broadcasting side, for example. Do we need to regulate any more the advertisements? We have plenty of different kind of rules about how you can use advertisements in a television. That's just one of the examples. The other thing is the silos that are made nationally. It may be upon the providers are doing those silos, preventing the free movement of services, or it may be the copyright. Basically, for example, we have a national broadcasting company, Yle, that can't show the programs abroad. If I'm traveling to Sweden or anywhere in Europe, I can't watch the television, the national channels. So we have to tackle these kind of the issues that really prevent the free movement of the services and the usage for those users. The other thing what I think is important and topical is the network neutrality. As I mentioned, I believe that the reliable and good networks are really essential for the future growth and innovation, but also the open internet. We didn't have any real problems in Finland, so we didn't have either a clear need for this kind of the more strict network neutrality regulation. However, in a pan-European level, I believe that that was actually useful. Okay, now we have an agreement about the rather strict network neutrality regulation in Europe. However, it's still very unclear. There's a political consensus that, well, it's actually quite strict. However, there are plenty of questions that still need to be tackled, and we are doing that work in the BEREC, that's the body of the European regulators, and trying to solve the open questions. But we have just around the 8 months to do it, so I can't really promise what's going to get out of it. And still, one of my favorite issues is the way of doing regulation. Well, I really believe in a cooperation, self-regulation, and this kind of the initiatives. I can give you a few examples. We were thinking in Finland that should we actually mandate our operators to implement IPv6? Okay, that was actually quite easy to decide, no, we don't want to regulate that. We don't want to mandate that. Instead of doing the regulation, we made a 2-year work with our stakeholders, first made some recommendations how to take the IPv6 into use, and last June we had the national launch for IPv6. Currently we have more than 5 million subscriptions where you can use IPv6 in Finland, so I think that's a really good success story to make it happen. And that was totally on the voluntary basis. So it gives you that you can actually achieve your goals also with the soft regulation and cooperation. I think that's mainly my main point, so thank you.